Okay, hi. I wanted to record a video because um, you have the midterm coming up, and um, I only had one recording so far this semester. And even though in that recording I did mention that you can use the Kahoot um, throughout the semester um, that I created, and it has all the questions that are on the midterm and the final. And I wanted to make sure that you understand that's actually a real thing and that it is something that you can use um, really almost like a cheat sheet in the course. I mean, all of the questions on the final are there, and up to a certain extent, the questions on the midterm are there. I mean, well, all the questions in the midterm are there, but there's more. Um, so Okay, so this is the Kahoot final review, can be used for the midterm review. And, that's on week 8. I have it in several places. It's in the announcements, for example. Um, and I added extra pictures and things like that to it so that um, you can study it. You know, uh, it's loading really slow. You can study it and use it at any time you want. So, um, you can play it as a game, or you can just look over the content um, and the answers. Okay, so let me see. Gotta love technology; it always works perfectly. Here. Okay, the analysis of the structure of words. This is morphology. Um, the structure of, well, there it says phrases and sentences is syntax or grammar. Um, the study of the systems and patterns of speech sounds and language, that's phonology, while the more basic, the study of the characteristics of speech sounds is phonetics. Speaker meaning, this is pragmatics, the meaning of words, phrases and sentences, this is semantics. Let me see, show answers. So, you know, it has the right answer marked on the Kahoot, as you can see, and you can go through it. There's little images, you know, language in the brain, neurolinguistics. Now these ones, if you move this over, um, so there's phonetic transcriptions, and I'm only asking, wow, that's really small. That says page. I mean, I'm only asking about a certain amount of these phonetic transcriptions. Um, and you only need to know a little bit of IPA, you know. Um, let me try. Let me see if I can. Well, for those ones, you can go through them. I do actually have the list too. So I mean, the Kahoot final review is in week 8. I have it in several places in the modules. Um, but back in the phonetics section, where it says study material for phonetics and for final and midterm, this little quiz um, is all you need to know for the phonetics. Um, okay, well, no. There's two things. You need to know these, right? Um, these regions, dental, labial dental, these are the places of articulation, right? Uh, dental, labial dental, bilabial, alveolar, postalveolar. palatal, velar, and glottal. You don't need to know where all those things are. Okay, that is not what I was looking for. I'm looking for the IPA. Sorry. That's important, but phonetics practice for midterm final. So really quick, let me just quick because okay. So these, you know, rather than having you master the entire IPA, I would rather you do remember some of the IPA. And so, this says page, right? This says weather, and both A and B are weather. This is reach. This is cancel. This is mystical. This is wishful. This is unusual. This is crowd. This is badger. This is fortune. This is everyone loves cats, which I wish everyone loved every creature on earth, but they don't. So it isn't false, but it does say everyone loves cats, and I think that's how I put it on the midterm and final. Uh, this says Great Britain is near China. That's false. This says 2 plus 2 equals 5. That's false. This says George Bush was president of the United States. That is true. 15. Clouds are often white. That's true. 16. The world is shaped like a cube. That's false. This fish hate water. It's probably false unless there are a lot of really depressed fish out there. Every syllable must have a nucleus. That's true. The syllable shun can be found in the word nation or shun, nation. It's not like shun, like a whole fully pronounced because it's a schwa, but nation. That's true. And the word through includes only 3 phonemes. That's true. So you can check your answers and they will tell you, um, you know, and not all of them are on the midterm and final, but most of them are. So if you go to the phonetics chapter, phonetics practice for midterm final, those are all there. That's so I'm going to skip over there. They're also in the Kahoot, so you can like play it to review. Um, okay, so there are some questions on morphology. Combining 2 or more words to form a new word. Waterbed, that's just compounding. A word formation process where a longer word is reduced to form with Y or IE at the end, like television becomes telly, or vegetable becomes veggie. This is what they call hypocorism. One of those words that's really specific to linguistics. I mean, it's not like a, anyway. That one you probably have to memorize because it's not normal. Okay, eponyms. Eponyms are things named after, well, people, like um, Achilles' heel is named after Achilles. Chauvinism is actually named after a guy, Nicholas Chauvin, who must have been a real a-hole. Caesar salad is not actually named after Julius Caesar. It's named after Caesar Cardini. But, you know, Lord Montague, the Earl of Sandwich, somehow his name, I mean, there's a whole little story about it, but he liked to play cards, and when he played cards, he didn't have time for a full meal, so he asked his servants to put some meat into between some bread, and that's his. It became known as a sandwich from that. Uh, so yeah, eponym. Like a lot, like saying Odysseus is the eponymous hero of the Odyssey, or Odyssey, the eponymous uh, um, epic poem. based on the travels of Odysseus. Okay, study of the history and origins of words is etymology, really interesting. Neologism, a new word, neo, new, logos, word, Greek. I have two little images for that, so I put them there. Okay. Process of taking words from other languages. Have some interesting examples there. That's borrowing. Acronyms, right? SNAFU, NASA, FUBAR, situation norm, normal, all fucked up, and fucked up beyond all recognition. Those are acronyms. Okay, now the next one, it's called a back formation. So allegedly, babysitter was first, and from babysitter, babysit came to be. Um, I mean, you kind of have to look at those historically, and it's kind of a confusing question. So when it says back formation, just take my word for it, or the linguistics people words. Here's some other back formations. Sculpt comes from sculptor. Burgle comes from burglar, etc., etc. Scavenge comes from scavenger. Um, these are supposed to be back formations. I mean, it looks like a clipping too. This is I like these. You know, the change in the function of word, as when a noun used to be a verb, say, or a verb used to be a noun. So Google is a noun. So, but we say, Google it, in the imperative form, a command, right? Um, so um, this is what they call conversion, where you convert a word from one part of speech to another. To text something is that originally text is a noun, and now we're texting each other. That's a verb. So Calvin and Hobbes, I like the verb words. What? I take nouns and adjectives and use them as verbs. Remember when access was a thing? Now it's something you do. It got verbed. Verbing weirds language. Maybe we can eventually make language a complete impediment to understanding. Anyway, I like Calvin and Hobbes. Okay. So that's conversion. Um, Combining the beginning of one word with the end of another to form a new word, like smog or ginormous. That is called, blended. It's a blended word. There's a little, frenemy, stuff like that. Oh, this is the same. Yeah. If I take smog from smoke and fog, or brunch from breakfast and lunch, it's blending. Okay. Clipping. When I reduce a word like examination to exam or gymnasium to gym, this will sound weird, but omnibus to bus or laboratory to lab. That's an example of clipping. You clip. Okay. Now, so there may be quite a few areas where you're looking at bound morphemes. I hope in the videos and stuff you got an idea of the bound versus free morphemes. Um, but here, this should be really easy. This is just a prefix, right? A bound morpheme, meaning it has to be attached to another word, usually a free morpheme. Actually, always a free morpheme. So a free morpheme is a word that can stand alone. You have two types of free morphemes. You have lexical morphemes, which are like your nouns, your verbs. It's the majority words in a language. And then you have functional morphemes. And functional morphemes are like pronouns and prepositions and conjunctions that are always limited within a language. It's maybe you can add a couple, but usually not. It's pretty much, it just doesn't happen. You're not going to add a whole bunch of new prepositions to a language. You can add nouns and verbs all the time, even adjectives. Anyway, bound morpheme, beginning of the word, un and unhappy, that's a prefix. Bound morpheme, the end of the word. Ed, in fainted, this is an inflectional morpheme. And ness and illness, that's a derivational morpheme. You have questions those are obviously suffixes. If it's a suffix or a prefix or a suffix, it's just an affix, right? Affix is like all of them. and a morpheme in the middle of a word, even though we don't really have those much in English, but like fuck and unfucking believable, uh, that is an infix. Okay, so bound morphemes. So little image of the free and the bound morphemes. Hopefully it comes up, and I'm not just talking to myself here in this. I'm using new software to record this video. So free morphemes can occur alone. They're words um, that, you know, if they give you the example wool, it's a free morpheme, but if I have in like woolen, which is an adjective, then it's a bound. The en is a bound morpheme. So bound morphemes and carelessness um, are okay. In this case, the main word is care, and lessness is those are the bound morphemes. Okay, two examples of bound morphemes. You have derivational and inflectional. And derivational, well, they give you some of the past, like the past tense of those are inflectional. They're basically um, eight inflectional morphemes in English or categories. Two examples of free morphemes. They can stand by themselves: car and. Car is a free lexical morpheme, and is a functional morpheme. So a type of free morpheme, lexical morpheme, car. Okay. Example of a functional morpheme, and. Bound morpheme used to indicate the grammatical function of a word, also called inflection. This is an inflectional morpheme. It's not a trick question. Bound morphemes such as ish to make new words or words of a new, different grammatical category. This is a derivational morpheme. Um, so derivational, you have certain prefixes and suffixes um, that usually, well, it's probably easier to explain the eight categories of um, inflectional morphemes, right? So you have the ing, like running. You have the ed, the past tense, and then all the irregular forms. You have the s, plural, and then you have the regular plurals of all the forms. You have the s, third person singular, like the boy runs, right? That's indicating that. You have the er, which is like the comparative form of an adjective. She's smarter than he is. You have the est, she's the smartest student in the class. You have the apostrophe s, which is the possessive, and you have the en, which is what they call the past participle. So if I say, like in the present perfect tense, I have eaten 2 apples today. Have eaten, the en, those are inflectional. If you're teaching ESL or whatever they want to label it, you will be dealing with inflectional morphemes and students trying to really acquire them a lot. And I had to teach an ESL program at a high school where they actually called them inflectional morphemes, and the students were supposed to know that, which was bananas. But okay, the content of the message should we convey. Noun, those are lexical morphemes. Free morpheme uses a function word, conjunction, like and, for or but or yet so, for or but or yet so, and a preposition on, in, by, with, to. That is a functional morpheme. Okay. Now, you do not have to know, I think, after 43, any of these that have to do with um, psycholinguistics. Um, it's beyond the scope of the midterm, but I mean, it's smart to practice this, to look at it, and so you know to be tested on. The other thing I will test you on is if you the essay question, which please do 2 to 3 paragraphs. Okay, cool. The essay question will ask you to write about what you've learned in the class. And I actually just mean that. I mean, um, over the duration of the class, what have you learned about linguistics? And um, it really, I want you to articulate, what you've learned in 2 or 3 paragraphs and cover some topics. But you can be reflective. You can talk about whatever you want, really. There's no time limit. You have 3 attempts at the test. If you need another one, I don't know, maybe you have really bad Wi-Fi. Just email me and I'll open it up, whatever. It opens up the 25th at 7 a.m., closes the 31st at 11:59. Um, you can do it more than once. Um, this is what it looks like. This is the quiz. Oh, you know what? Sorry, there are some questions on Kahoot that I didn't get to. Okay. History of the English language. Before 1100, before 1060, Battle of Hastings, William the Conqueror, the French-speaking former Vikings, Northmen invading England in 1066. Before that, you have Old English. Um, it sounds like a totally different language, but it's the basis for English. Um, After 1066, the French-speaking Normans rule England. It's a language of the ruling class, and you have the development of what's called Middle English, typified like Old English is like Beowulf or the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles. It's very different. It's hard to pick up any words from it. Middle English is like Geoffrey Chaucer. You can pick out quite a few words, but it's also very different. Early modern English, if you look a little bit before, Henry VIII and Shakespeare is born in 1564, he dies 1616. This is what you call early modern English up till around 1700. And then just because they're only using 4 classifications or 4, you can do a lot more with history of the English language. Since about 1700, you have modern English. Okay. There is, yeah, this is a question about standard language that is actually in the Kahoot. I'm sorry that I didn't go on to it. They're just ordered differently. But there's questions about like characteristics of speech sound, that's phonetics, systems and patterns of speech sounds in language, that's phonology. The why is the pragmatics. The meaning is semantics. Language in the brain, neurolinguistics. There's an innateness theory that you're born with some knowledge about language. That is in some of the study stuff, but I haven't emphasized it. Onomatopoeia, right? Vocal imitation of the sound, hiss, buzz. Recursion as a characteristic of human language. Repeated application of a rule in generating structures. Um, Arbitrariness, that there is no natural connection between a linguistic form and its meaning. The way in which language is passed from one generation to the next, that is cultural transmission. Displacement, a property of language, allows users to talk about things and events not present in the immediate environment. There's 3 types of phonetics, one of which we don't really touch at all upon here. That's acoustic phonetics. The study of how speech sounds are produced. This is articulatory phonetics. How they're processed, heard and processed. This is auditory phonetics. Okay, yeah. Compounding, waterbed, etymology, history and origin of words, word derived from the name of a person or place, eponym, new word, neologism, telly, movie, veggie. The Australians say Barbie for barbecue. This is hypocorism. Acronym, snafu, NASA, back formation, babysit from babysitter, conversion, she texted me. Text was a noun, using it as a verb. Um, uh, you know, blending smog from smoke and fog. Okay, so these ones are the same, and actually they're all in the Kahoot, including these. So you need to know, rather than giving you a lot of different ones for the parts of speech quiz type stuff, um, and syntax. I'm not making you draw syntactical trees or something like that, because unless you're going to become a linguistics major, it doesn't really matter. But um, around is a preposition. You need to know these ones, and I'll keep them the same, like the same questions for the midterm and the final. He walked around the corner. Around is a preposition. She, it's a pronoun. Hopes, here is a verb. With is a preposition. Older is an adjective. You really should see this art exhibit, Kenny. That's an adverb. Um, okay, so then we get to page and reach and weather and crowd and badger and mystical and wishful and fortune and 2 + 2 = 5 and everyone loves cats and the subject of a sentence. Her friend speaks many languages. Her friend is the subject, and the predicate speaks many languages. Speaks is the predicate. And then, I give you some of these as far as the place of articulation. And then, you know, what are you thinking about, and what have you learned about linguistics over the course of the semester? So I'm hoping this records and it will be useful for you. And you can make anything up throughout the semester. I have the midterm for a certain time limit, and I have the final for a certain time limit. But because especially the final, I can't. I have to turn in grades. But if you miss stuff from the first week, whatever, you still have time to do it. So please do it. I would like to see everybody pass, everybody do well. And I really hope, it's all there. Everything you need to know and test on is all there. Okay. Sorry I haven't made more videos, All right. Take care.